So, welcome to this episode of Pagophilia. In this episode I want to speak about the mirrorless cameras. There's a lot of discussions these days about mirrorless cameras, and this is one of them, the Olympus OM-D M1 Mark II. So Olympus cameras is 4.3 sensors, and why should you actually choose a mirrorless camera when you have all the DSLRs and the Nikon and the Canon and all the others that are so popular especially amongst wildlife photographers? There is a lot of skepticism, I would say, towards the mirrorless cameras. They say the sensors is too small, the files are not good enough, and so on. So I will give you some tips. I've been testing Olympus for a year now, and I'm actually now becoming an Olympus ambassador. I thought after I was testing the cameras, I thought they were so good, so I approached Olympus and asked if they wanted to cooperate with me. I publish pictures in magazines, many of the most prestigious magazines, both in the world, within Norway and also internationally. So for me, mirrorless camera, I walk a lot up in the mountains, follow people who work up in the mountains, do their work, and the size is of course the main reason. Size and the weight is the main reason if you want to switch to a mirrorless camera from a DSLR. DSLRs are super heavy, and also especially if you do the wildlife with the big lenses. This lens here, you see, this is a 40 to 150 millimeter lens, and so it's and the Olympus has a 4.3 sensors, so it's a small sensor. So if you choose that to a DSLR, you should double it, so it's effectively 80 to 300 millimeter. Very convenient, and also the 300 millimeter is slightly bigger than this, but not much, and you can put a converter on it, and then you have a 840 millimeter. So weight and size is of course very important, and I think that's why Olympus is so good. The lenses are very small. Also, when you have a 4.3 sensor compared to a full frame sensor, it's much easier to make the lenses, and you gain a lot of weight and size by choosing a 4.3 sensor mirrorless camera. Another obvious advantage is of course you have a foldable screen, which I can fold up and down like this. So doing wildlife especially, it's very important to get low and the lowest possible. If you lay down and lean on your elbows like this, and compared to having the camera on the bottom like this, makes a huge difference in your picture and how the birds or the animal looks like in the picture. So be able to sit comfortably on your knee, just look down in the screen is another reason why you should do it. Also, you can flip it also upside. So like now when I'm filming myself, I actually see the screen and I can see what I film all the time. So it's not so it's good for those who like selfies, or those who YouTube videos like myself. Is a perfect for that. Also, there has some functions that you don't really have in the DSLRs. You have the Olympus. I think Olympus is the only one that has it. It has a mode called Pro Capture. I talked about that a little bit earlier in a video. So please have a look in an episode. I think it's a couple of episodes ago. I was filming Arctic fox getting attacked by a tern, and with the Pro Capture function when I tested that. So please have a look at that if you want to know more about the Pro Capture function. Ideally, or in short, it's a function that remembers back in time. So when I half press the trigger, the camera starts to take picture, but always also deletes picture at the same time. So when I fully press the trigger, it starts to take picture 1 second back in time already. So then you get so for wildlife, birds going in for landing, birds fighting, or things like that you're not if you are on a grouse lek or rough fleck where the bird suddenly clash together and start fighting, it's perfect for that, because those pictures you usually miss with a normal camera, but with a pro capture function you can actually get those. Or if you're waiting for a polar bear jumping on an ice floe, for instance, you can hold it, and then so usually you miss the first seconds of the jump, or the first short seconds, but with pro capture you get the whole sequence. So yeah, so another function you have is also the live composite. That means that that I take a background picture and the live composite function just add the new light. So if I have, for instance, I take northern light pictures, I take the scene of a city or a cityscape, and even the still taking picture, still recording all the new light coming into the scene, but the street lights, for instance, which is constant, will not get overexposed. But if a car passes by, or if northern lights coming, or if a lightning scene, for instance, these will be recorded on the camera, but not the constant light that is there. So live composite is also a very fun function to use. Live bulb is another thing. You can just open the screen and you have the live bulb. You can see as the picture developed. You can see how it develops, and once it's finished, when you see the picture developing, once it's you think it's okay, you just push stop, and it's you don't need to spend a lot of time testing, and just basically wasting a lot of time taking your picture, because you can hear on the screen, in the live bulb function, you can see it as it develops. So that's another very neat function with which you can do with mirrorless stuff, which is impossible to do with the DSLRs, but just because technology doesn't allow it basically. So also for wildlife, you have with mirrorless you can shoot totally silent, which is really helpful. I'm a wildlife photography guide, and I've been in so many situations where people waiting for the polar bear to look up, or the animal to be in one position, and then everybody starts shooting, and you just hear this gun machine going off basically, and it's and the animal gets shit scared and run away immediately, because it's so much camera noise that also if you're sitting alone in a hide shooting owls, for instance, owls are sometimes very sensitive to this, especially short-eared owl and some of the other birds. So their ears are super sensitive and are listening for mouse running in the snow or in the grass. So when you start to click the button, they get scared and fly away. But with a totally silent shutter, you avoid these things. Yeah, so people are a little bit skeptic about the file quality, of these mirrorless cameras, but it's absolutely no reason to be so. Some great northern divers, three of them flying around here, nice cold. Yeah, so, but I print 1 meter prints. I printed up to 2 meters with the mirrorless, absolutely no problem. Crystal sharp pictures. Of course, you have to do a good work with when you're out in the field taking the pictures, but the lenses of cameras like Olympus, it's so super sharp. As I said, some of the lenses, the 7mm 1.2 for instance, is probably the sharpest lens on the camera market today. So it's absolutely, unless you're printing billboard size pictures on a regular basis, the file size is more than good enough. I'm winning awards with these pictures in some of the prestigious competitions of the world, and also as I said, I'm printing also in the magazines, articles and stories with some of the more prestigious magazines of the world. So it's really, the quality of the file is just something in the head of a lot of wildlife photographers. It's more than good enough for everyone. The only 2 weak points is of course the ISO. It's not super good, so I usually keep below 1600 ISO if I'm in a dark environment. If you are in an environment where you manage to expose very well. 1600 is also not a problem at all. You can shoot up to 6004 if you are in an environment where you have enough light, but you need a little bit more speed. That's my experience at least. But if you're in a dark environment, inside the rainforest, inside a dark forest, inside the buildings, then it's a little bit more tricky with the ISO, I find. But then I wouldn't go more than 1600. Also, battery capacity starts to get really good now. I take, depending on how much you use, the LCD screen on the back, but I shoot somewhere between 600 and 1000 pictures on one battery. It depends a little bit how cold it is, of course, as well. If it's -10 or colder, the battery tends to drain a little bit faster, so you need to have spare batteries with you. But the batteries are really small and they charge very fast. So once so if you have two spare batteries in your pockets, you will be set to go for a long while with these cameras. So another great thing about the mirrorless is, of course, that it's especially with the Olympus, you have a big lineup of different lenses, and some of the lenses that are made there is probably the sharpest on the market. So it's a fantastic lens. You have everything from, for those who wants to do street photography, those who do wildlife photography. The biggest lens the Olympus have at the moment is a 300mm. If you put a 1.4 converter on that will be, with the 4.3 sensor, that will be equivalent to the to about 840mm. And because the stabilization is so good with the Olympus, it's no problem to handheld 840mm and shoot down to maybe 30th of a second or 60th of a second shutter speed. So it's really incredible, this lens and stabilizing system for the Olympus. So the big lineup and also the price. I mean, you get a camera and a high quality lens. If you buy one of the Seiko Pro lenses, which is the one that Olympus uses, you get it for a very good price. And it's compared to the big DSLRs, the big 600s, 500 f4 and these things, which you have to pay a month's salary or even more than that to actually buy. The mirrorless systems are very cheap. So all in all, the mirrorless stuff is really coming now, and I think it's just a matter of a few years and it's taken completely over the whole photography market. Even for wildlife photographer that seems to be a little bit skeptic about it. Indoor photographers, again, ISO is not super good, so maybe they will wait a little bit before they change. Or studio photographers maybe as well, but yeah, I think it's mirrorless is really for sure going to be the future. Yeah, so it's so mirrorless cameras is here to be. I think it's the future for sure. Digital viewfinder, it's a little bit something to get used to in the beginning. They tend to be very bright, so you just from what looks perfect in the viewfinder, you have to underexpose a little bit to make it correct exposure. That's at least my experience. But the upside with a digital viewfinder is that you can put so much information inside the viewfinder. So when I look at the inside viewfinder, I have a thing so you can see if the camera is in line and with the horizon or not, and I don't know the English name for that, sorry. But also I have the histogram. I can see the histogram all the time, and which is very convenient. So even though the viewfinder itself is a bit bright, you can just have a look at the histogram and you see if it's a correctly exposed or not picture. So that's very convenient, I find. Menu system, it's big, but it's also fairly easy to understand if you're used to the camera. Of course, the buttons are a little bit different place than you're used to if you have a DSLR, but that's also something you get used to very quick. The small size means that the buttons are of course a little bit smaller as well. I don't find it a big problem at all. If it's super cold outside and you use big gloves, it might be a problem. But for most situations, I don't find it. I'm shooting with gloves on, and I still manage to push the buttons okay on the camera. So this is how it looks on the back side. So you can see it's the buttons are a little bit smaller than maybe what you are used to. it has Wi-Fi, it has so you can shoot remote, it has an app so you shoot by your phone, you can shoot remotely, which is super good. It also has a high-res function, which is nice for landscape photographers. Then you need a tripod on it, so but that means you can shoot. It shoots several pictures in the in a square, and then it puts it together to one file, and it's a 50 megapixel file. The normal RAW file is about 20 megapixel. So yeah, also it shoots 60 frames per second if you shoot in the electronic shutter, which is for wildlife photographers. If you shoot birds in flight or these things, it's a fantastic. You get every single, it's like a video basically. Talking about video, the stabilizing system in Olympus is absolutely outstanding. It's not a single camera in the world that can be compared. I can shoot handheld 300mm plus converter, which means in a DSLR full frame equivalent to 840mm. I can shoot that handheld video and it looks stable. This is my 40 to 150mm, and the stabilizing system, you have stabilizing in the lens, you have stabilizing in the camera, and it's so good that it's really, yeah, it's impressive. That's one of the things that impressed me most when I started to test these cameras. So that's a fantastic feature, and I think something that will impress most people that get one of these cameras in their hands. So as you see, the sun is starting to come up now in Greenland. It's 5:10 in the morning. So I need to shoot a little bit. I hope this video was a little bit helpful with mirrorless camera, why it's good, the size and the weight. With a full frame mirrorless, you don't really gain so much size and weight as you do with a 4/3 sensor like the Olympus one. So that's why I chose Olympus over the other ones, like Sony, Pentax and these things, because they are also very good cameras, but I don't feel that you gain so much size or weight during that. And that's also what I'm afraid now with the Nikon and the Canon starting to come into the mirrorless market. But they have to, the lenses, you don't want to use a big 600mm on a mirrorless, because that's no point of doing that. You don't gain size and weight, and you can just stick with a DSLR. So mirrorless is about size and weight, and also a lot of electronic stuff in the camera which DSLRs doesn't have. So that's all for me now on Pagophilia blog. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. If you do, please have a look, and also some of the other episodes, and maybe I see you later. Remember to subscribe if you like what you see. Goodbye.